Hello, welcome to Food and Climate, or in Swedish, Mat Klimat. The discussion today is about food as medicine, and I have with me from in United States, Mike Young. Welcome.
Well, thank you for so much for having me here today. I'm looking very much forward to talking with you. So thank you.
Before I start talking with Mike, I would just remind you that you can support this YouTube channel by subscribe to it. It helps. And also you can give us a good 5 stars on Spotify if you want to. So, Mike, please present yourself and the project you're working with, a plant-based diet org. Why did you start this, and what is the purpose?
All right. Well, you can see behind me our logo, a plant-based-diet.org, right behind me over here. It's also our website, which has all the information about us. And I did start the organization in 2014. And that was the year that I finally gave up animal products, which at the time was just dairy. I was vegetarian at the time. So I became fully plant-based or vegan. And at the time, which was almost 10 years ago, I didn't know anyone that was vegan. So I didn't have anyone that was an acquaintance of mine, like either a family member or even a friend. I did see some people on the internet that were living that lifestyle. So I figured, well, one of the ways we can help, get more people involved so that I could at least have some friends maybe, that are local, is to start an organization, start some online communities, and try to start some in-person events. So that's how we first began. And then from that, we've expanded. So like when I first got involved too, I personally was going after this for health, thinking I was making a good choice, just trying to improve my health. I wasn't having a crisis at the time or anything, but my thought at the time, and it still is that this is the future. People need to learn or be educated as to how to take control of their own health. And then once you learn that skill, you're not going to ever want to move away from that, because life's so much better.
I agree. I try to do almost the same thing. I left meat 40 years ago, and I left dairy products 5 years ago. But I still have fish and and eggs to finish with. But I agree. My goal is to be totally plant-based. I feel so much better. Listen, so can you please tell me why you advocating for a plant-based diet? Is it only for health, and why does it is so advantageous for health?
All right, well, great question. We actually see 3 major facets that we are benefiting really with our work. And it's in our slogan. Our slogan is for people, animals, and our planet. So we do believe that anytime we dive into this plant-based lifestyle, we expect those 3 benefits, not only human health, but also being kind to animals and also doing the best we can for the environment. So over the time actually that we've been doing this work, we know that whenever we don't use animal products, that their animals automatically benefit. That's not that difficult, although it can be a difficult concept psychologically for many people. And because of that, we actually have many people that we work with, and you can see on our website under our team, that are ethical vegans. And they do a very good job of convincing people why you do not want to use animal products from an ethical perspective. And now, if you look at the health, like you were mentioning, and the climate, they actually go hand in hand as far as I've learned over the years. And actually, I recently put together a talk, which is on our YouTube channel, same name as our nonprofit. And it actually addresses, I think I released it last week, it addresses the exact connection and the direct correlation, actually, between optimizing the environment and optimizing your health. And in that, I discuss and show how you cannot have one without the other. Meaning you can't be, let's say, like a junk food vegan and expect to do the best for the environment. It's just not possible. And the way I lay it out, there's many different details that have to be, gone over for someone to understand that. But that's our understanding. So of course we want to optimize our health because that's what makes life most fun. But of course, if there's no earth or a messed up earth that you have to live on, that's not fun either. So we're just glad to be able to, try to get that word out to people and to explain it if people don't understand.
Okay, so you want to avoid animal suffering, you want to help the planet heal, and you want people to heal. Is that a good summary?
Yes, that's a great summary. Yes.
So can you go into a little bit details? What kind of diet do you recommend? You have behind you to the left from the viewer's point of view, pyramid. Can you explain it to me?
Sure. Well, this is our logo. We wanted to keep things as direct and straightforward as possible back in the day, 9 years ago when we started the nonprofit. So we figured, why don't we just show people what to eat? This is a very general but very accurate, we do believe, description of what people should eat. Down at the bottom, is the main part of your diet. And this is a diet that we think really appeals to most people. We even go as far to say it's probably a health optimizing species specific diet for humans. So if the bottom is water, most people are made up mostly of water. That should be the drink of choice as far as all drinks go. And then you've got dark leafy greens. All dark leafy greens, especially darker in color, have a very high nutrient content, usually very low fat. And also you would love to eat them fully organic or totally chemically free, grown if possible. And then above that, you've got fruits and vegetables, all the colors, all the reasons why, we have colored vision. I do believe that it's all, it all makes sense. Everything is right to do. It all makes sense with the way humans are. And so above that, you've got some grains, you've got nuts, and you've got some beans, you've got nuts and seeds, and then microgreens and things above that, and even herbs. So as we get towards the top, you're getting to either a higher fat content in general for the food, or you're getting to something that's very super nutritiously dense, and you don't necessarily want to overdose on, So everything has its place. And really, if you go down there, you see most of the bulk of the food, and of course, all this has fiber in it, is going to be high nutritious dark greens or colored fruits and vegetables. That should really be the staple of most people's diets.
Okay. And can you explain from a health point of view, why should people avoid dairy products, meat, and also other animal products?
All right. Well, there's been some controversy about this recently, even on my own LinkedIn, which is where we connected. I mentioned that, you should avoid animal products. And one of the things that's been said all along is the dietary cholesterol level that's in animal products. Only animal products contain cholesterol. And as we look at humans, well, that's a big area of concern if your own cholesterol, your blood cholesterol numbers are high. Now, there's also some questions as to whether there's a direct correlation there between the cholesterol that you consume in a food and your own blood cholesterol level. So I won't focus too much on that, but I will focus on something that we released just this past week dealing with TMAO. And that is a substance that is generally found in the animal product foods and has severe negative health consequences. It's not really, I think, at all found in plant foods. So learning more about TMAO, and like I said, we released something on that this week, not only a video, but also some text, a summary, and an article on that. That is one of the biggest reasons. Another reason that is also somewhat controversial is the fact that Dr. T. Colin Campbell, in his book, The China Study, has apparently proven that animal protein causes cancer in humans. Whether or not that's actually true, we don't know 100% for sure. He makes a really good case in his book, but that's yet another thing. So those are three major things. I say, the cholesterol load from what you're eating, the fact that animal product, any animal protein may cause cancer in humans, and then for certain the TMAO, which causes all kinds of issues in humans. I think one of the things we read and found in our research was that someone who consumes TMAO on a regular basis, or foods that produce the TMAO in the gut, has like a 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 times higher risk of dying of any cause, 4 ti other than people that don't. So that is a significant reason to not ever go and eat animal products.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, even the United Nations have said that cardiovascular disease and cancer is linked to meat from cows, bulls, and pigs, red meat.
Correct. Yeah, we've seen that too in our research. A lot of places that will rate substances as to whether or not they will cause cancer in humans. I think that processed red meat is a highest level class 1, I believe, carcinogen. And I think red meat might be the step below that where it's a probable carcinogen.
That is what I have heard also. So if I may ask you, you write that you advise to avoid oils. Does that include also rapeseed oil and linseed oil that contains omega-3?
Yes, it does. Unfortunately, we believe that the negatives outweigh the positives. Just like with animal products, there are some positives with animal products, but the negatives outweigh them. And you and I were discussing earlier before the video, I have a book out that's a free resource through our nonprofit. It's not in print. It's zero waste. It's available on our website, or you can go to the name of the book, which is Live to 150. Just go to liveto150.org. That's the URL. Anyway, in there I have a chapter called Oil is Garbage. Okay, because I do believe that oil is the ultimate junk food. And yes, there is some nutrition, some. But the reality is, let's say we're talking about olive oil. Just eat the olive, because when you turn it into the oil form, it's manufactured. Okay, it's not, that's what I would say, not just processed, it's actually manufactured. You will never find oil in nature. You'll never find a bottle of oil or a puddle of oil or whatever. It doesn't exist. It has to be manufactured by humans. And because of that, I call it the ultimate junk food. The reason why is because one of the benefits of plants is they contain fiber, which animal products have zero fiber. Unfortunately, oil, even though it's a plant and from a plant, has no fiber. All the fiber is removed. So basically what you're left with is a fraction of the nutrition, if any, and nearly 100% calories from fat. And actually, that's another reason why you don't want to consume animal products, is because generally animal products have a very high percentage of calories from fat. And when you eat foods that contain a high level of calories from fat, that does raise your blood cholesterol level. Okay, we also did an article recently where we talked about that. There's absolutely no question about that. So you must eat a low-fat diet. When you eat animal products, it's nearly impossible to do that. And so when you're eating oil, even though it's a plant product, it doesn't get any higher. 100% calories from fat. I've talked to some people who have different medical practices, and they tell me they see that vegans have some of the worst blood work they've ever seen. And the reason why is because of the oil consumption. Because you can be a vegan and you can eat oily foods all day long, right? That's fully plant-based too, right? Because it's all plants. But it's like you're eating processed food all day long. I think we all will agree that eating processed food is less than optimal. So that's what we think of oil. And like I said, we know there's some benefits, just like there are some benefits to animal products, but the negatives outweigh the positives.
Okay, so when it comes to healthy fats, you advise people to eat what you see in the pyramid. Can you mention the most important sources of healthy fats in the vegan that you advise to?
Well, I'd say all mostly whole plants. When I say mostly whole plants, I mean plants that are either cut or blended. Once you get beyond that, you can cook them a little bit too. And what I talk about in my book is that you don't ever want to go above 350 degrees in the Fahrenheit scale. Once you do, it creates acrylamide, which is also a known carcinogen. So you want to keep the cooking low and minimally process. And all plants have some type of fat. Now, the nuts and seeds, I think we know, have lots of fat in them. Very high percentage of calories from fat. Same with avocado. However, nuts and seeds do have some very good nutrition content to them, and so does avocado. So I would say that you want to have a little bit of nuts and seeds, but it has to be a very small amount if you have any. And if you want some of the other good fats, go with avocado. That's actually a fruit. It's not a nut or a seed. So it doesn't have that hard shell. It doesn't have, if you study what nuts and seeds are, it doesn't have the anti-nutrients that are in nuts and seeds to protect themselves, because they don't have that covering like the fruits and vegetables do. So I would say avocado is probably the best, but again, it comes down to make sure that you keep your percentage of calories from fat at a low number. It's probably way lower than the average person is eating, because we're all eating too much. And I'd say 20% at the maximum percentage of calories from fat. This is on your overall diet. But that assumes that you are physically active and moving. And like for me, I'm actually standing up here. I don't like to sit, okay? But I'm unusual in today's day and age. But I move more than the average person, but I still don't want to put mine above 10%. And I wouldn't recommend anyone have more than 10% calories from fat. And if you ever start to focus in on what you're eating and do an analysis, you'll probably find that your calorie intake as a percentage of calories from fat is significantly more than 10%. So just watch the nuts and seeds. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Watch the nuts and seeds, watch the avocados. You can have some, but don't like whip up a whole batch of plant-based cheese with all these cashews or something, or go and get that plant-based ice cream in the grocery store, because there's so many of them, but they're so high in fat because of all the nuts. You have to be very careful with that. You can have it as a treat. That's how I describe it, but not part of the regular and continual diet staples.
Okay. One other advice you have is to avoid gluten. Does that mean avoid bread, basically?
All right. Well, I would say gluten, the big concern that we have with gluten is the fact that most wheat is non-organic. So I'm not exactly sure how many people that have gluten sensitivities or full-blown celiac disease are actually just sensitive to the chemicals. Right now, there's a lot we don't know. And we figure, just don't have that much gluten. And if you do, have it fully organic. I would say that was, what was the other part of the question you asked? I'm sorry.
If you recommend people to avoid bread to the biggest degree.
Okay, well, I know people won't like to hear this, but just like we talked about oil, will you ever find bread in nature growing as a plant? No, because it's also a highly processed food. I know people don't consider it that for some reason. It seems to get a pass,
Yes.
But that's exactly what it is. It will not exist in nature. You will never find it in nature. You have to do so many things to create it. Not to say that I don't eat it, okay? Because I will have some bread from time to time. It's just not a staple of the diet. You can have a cheat meal. You can, if you enjoy it, have it every once in a long while, but do not make it a staple of your diet. That's when it becomes a problem.
And when it comes to oatmeal, for example?
Well, oatmeal, I've had some oatmeal recently. In general, I'd say, and I talk about this in the Live to 150 book, you want to stay with the colors. You notice that the grains are higher up and they're obviously not as colorful. Well, if you also look at people, especially who are not doing well health-wise, they tend to eat a diet that's very uncolorful, very brown, okay? And even oatmeal tends to create a higher acid load on the body, okay? There's a lot of things that are less than optimal about oatmeal. However, it's way better than bacon and eggs for breakfast, okay? So you have to, pick your battles and decide which one you're going to do. But in general, just try to make sure your diet, because it's easy enough to do. Like you just mentioned bread, you mentioned oil, you mentioned oatmeal. None of those foods have any color in them. You want to have a very vibrant, colorful diet overall.
Okay. And on the top of the pyramid, you have herbs and microgreens. Microgreens are that basically pepper and I can't all the names in English, but basically species that you put over the food.
Yes. Well, microgreens are generally, I guess I'd say sprouts would be in that. Sprouts and microgreens are generally put together, right?
Yes.
And then the herbs. I mean, a lot of people can use herbs and things like this medicinally because they are very powerful. So you just don't want to have that many, but they're wonderful for flavoring foods, especially if you're not adding salt. That's another thing we haven't even gotten into, but over here is our healthy vegan food certification, because we don't consider all vegan food healthy. Has to meet a minimum requirement. But these herbs are great, herbs and spices for flavoring up your food without adding salt. Okay, so it's a great thing for that, but it's just really it's not the also not the staple of your diet, right? I mean, it's a way to flavor the foods that you already make them more enjoyable. And then sprouts and microgreens, they, if you're not familiar with those, a lot of these you don't even need to grow outdoors. You can grow them indoors without any light. It's just right when that seed pops open, it's full of energy, full of nutrition, and that, especially for people who are deficient in certain minerals and vitamins, is an excellent way to make sure you're not. And I'm talking as a way that you don't need to take supplements. We don't advocate taking any supplements, aka pill form of anything, unless it's B12. And even that, we're still looking into this more, but apparently there's something called water lentils that you can grow that has enormous amounts of B12 in it. That's a plant. And we would love to see people not have to take B12 either, but that's really the only thing. But again, going back to what you asked about with microgreens and with sprouts, if you're not into that, I would highly recommend every once in a while that you incorporate some of that, like sprinkle it on your salad or other dishes. It's just packed with nutrition.
Okay, so when it comes to proteins, because there's always what I meet but it's not enough proteins. But then you probably say, well, you have different colored beans, strong brown, strong black, and so forth, that has a lot of proteins. And what else?
Well, just about every plant has proteins. The concern with plants, if there is one, is that you're not getting a complete protein. And the solution for that and the fix for that is to have a well-balanced diet, which everyone needs anyway. It may be a little bit easier with animal products from a protein perspective, but the problem is there's so many negatives that go along with that you don't want to go that route. So really every plant has protein. I'd say spinach, right? You've heard of Popeye the Sailor Man. That's what he used to eat, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's been a big deal forever. It's just that people see, I don't know. I guess since it's in a cartoon, they don't take it seriously, but you really can get tons of protein from spinach and
broccoli.
Broccoli, yes, that's right. Those dark green vegetables, the darker the better generally in terms of that nutrition content, but you do need to eat a lot. This thing, they're very light, right? They don't weigh much. So if it's good for your weight, because you're gonna go right into the middle of the BMI by eating a lot of broccoli and spinach, there's no way you're gonna weigh too much by eating those foods. The challenge a lot of times is eating enough food. I know with me, because I'm 53 and I'm right in the middle of the BMI, but believe me, I eat like people wouldn't believe, because most of my food is packed with not only nutrition, but of course low calorie density and fiber and high water content. So you have to eat a lot. Whereas, animal products generally are the opposite of that. And oil doesn't fit in that category either. You don't have to eat much of that before the pounds start packing on, So the protein is not an issue as long as you're eating enough. And as long as you're eating the right plant foods, you're going to be eating enough. It's only when you go to those low nutrition plant foods, such as the oils, like you mentioned earlier, that you might have a concern about not getting enough. Although I've never met a person that's been protein deficient that I've ever even known of.
So you could say, if you eat a variety of plants, like in your pyramid, you will get the coverage of all the 9 essential amino acids. That's correct? I
believe so.
Yes. So there we have the solution for that. But we have actually one plant that is complete, as I understand it: soy.
Okay. Yeah, I eat lots of soy. I don't drink cow's milk, obviously. So when I'm preparing some foods, I will make my own soy milk at home. And I use organic soybeans, and I actually use distilled water too. I think it matters what kind of water you're using when you make it. But yeah, I do believe that soy, I kind of gravitate towards it, even though some people give it a bad, I don't know, they give it a bad reputation because they talk about estrogen levels and other things. But I think most of that is not true, and or based on a lot of the soy, like most of the foods, which are non-organic, and any non-organic food can and will have negative health consequences. That's why we advocate organic, or chemically free grown.
Yes. And if I want to help the viewer and listener, you go to www.aplantbaseddiet.org. You can see it on the screen behind Mike. And there, yes, and there you have also a video book. Can I call it that?
Yeah, I did initially call it a video book or a V book, but I just call it a book now, because I think that just like plant-based eating is the future, paperless is the future as well. Zero waste. We're definitely about zero waste, because that affects the climate. We don't want to damage the environment if we don't have to.
Exactly. And may I ask you one more thing? How do you have a position when it comes to fasting, intermittent fasting?
Yes, I do. I mentioned this in the book. There's a chapter on it. I mean, I used to think, like most people, that was starving. Why would you want to hurt yourself? By starving. Oh no, don't skip a meal. I'm so hungry. I'm gonna mess something up. When the exact opposite is true, as we found out. If you look back in history, especially with certain religions, they talk about fasting, and I always thought it was a bunch of nonsense. But it's how the body works. And whenever, if you think about it, whenever you are lacking in something, if you're approaching the lack of something from an intelligent perspective, you're going to start optimizing everything, because you realize there's a shortage of something you need. And that's exactly what happens when you fast. Your body recognizes that it's not getting what it wants. It's sent out the signals, the hunger and the stomach growling. It's not getting it. So it's like, okay, I may never get any. I need to start really optimizing, and that may have been my last meal ever. And that's how it works internally. Your body just goes into that hyper optimizing mode, and you heal, which is amazing to think about, but that's how it works. That's how we found it works. And, it has to be done very specifically. There are centers such as the True North Center here in the United States, in California, that specialize in this, because you can do anything wrong, and you can absolutely do fasting wrong. I would definitely recommend you consult with a professional before you start something like this.
Yes, but I would like to say what I do since a month, and I feel so much better. I try to eat much more like you do, like you prescribe. But in my case, I start eating at 10 a.m. and I finish at 4 p.m. And then I have an 18-hour fasting period. And I'm never hungry after 4.
That's good. Well, it's good. You sleep better.
Yes.
Also,
yes.
if you dehydrate a little, I found that you don't get up to go to the bathroom at night, so you actually have even better sleep if you don't have to get up to go to the bathroom. So, and another thing you brought up is that you're intermittent fasting. I would view that as a little bit different. There's different types, right? Than like a long-term fast, because I've seen some people that go 30 days without having anything but water, and that's an extreme healing, and that's something you absolutely want to have supervised. But the intermittent fasting is not something that probably the average person needs supervision on, but I think it's also beneficial for certain.
Yes, there are a lot of research. So if you're curious, you who listen, please look it up. There are so much information about this, and the science is quite clear. In my case, I can say that my blood sugar level is more even now, and I'm not hungry, but I eat a lot during these 6 hours.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I think this was a great discussion. Mike, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I mean, I'm thankful that you all are interested in hearing this, and thank you for the work that you are doing as well in terms of spreading this knowledge, because, I think we both agree that this is the future. It's just a matter of education for most people.
Yes. And please go to our YouTube site. Also, a plant-based diet.org has a YouTube channel, so you can find them via their website. You can find us directly on YouTube and also on matoklimat.nu, and you find us on all podcasts. So I say again, goodbye to you, Mike, and I hope to repeat these in a few months.
Of course, that'll be wonderful. I'd love to keep in touch. It's I think that for everyone's benefit, for like-minded people to connect and to share knowledge. So again, thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, Mike. And you who listened or have seen this video, thank you for being with us. And we put up one interview each week at least. So please follow us on podcasts and on YouTube. Thank you for being with us.